July 29, 2001. Yalak Ahmed channel, Twitter, YouTube, Patreon. This lesson is titled Psalm 91, verse 1. I will actually read from verse 1 to 6, though, but I'm focusing on verse 1. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Right away I can tell most of these words, we don't fully understand them the way they were understood in very ancient times. So we just make the best of them that we can whenever we read the Bible. Now, shadow right here can be explained in different ways. We've got a couple ways I can look at shadow, but for this lesson, let's just use shadow as darkness, like when you see your shadow, there's a little bit of darkness right there on the ground. Some shade or darkness. So he's saying here, if you are dwelling in the secret place of the Most High, you are under darkness. And we focus so much on the light of the Word, the light of God, the light of Christ, and so on. But the writer here is saying, if you are in that very secret place, you are living in the dark. So there's just a lot of things that people won't understand about you because you are in the secret place of the Most High. As you know, they tell you God has so much light about him that you can't tell where he is, you can't find him, you can't approach him, and the New Testament has something to that effect. So the brightness of his light or of his glory is so strong that you cannot approach God, you cannot find him, you can only just see the source of the light. But maybe if the light is extra bright, you can't approach, but at least you know that's where he is, because that's the brightest spot over there. It's like you look up in the sky, in the daytime the sun is shining real bright. Light goes everywhere, but the more you look closer and closer, like you're trying to look directly at the sun, the more blinding that is, so you can't look directly right there comfortably. You can only tolerate that for so long, but at least you know that's where the source is, the light. So if that is God, then, might I say, then at least you know where he is. But if it is darkness that represents God, then if it is just dark, it might be a little difficult as well to tell just where he is. You see, when you think of that, it really makes you stop and you think. Because he said, both the light and the dark are alike unto me. So, is there a part of your understanding that should come around to knowing that as intense as the light can be to represent God, is as intense as darkness must be to represent God, because both of them are alike unto me. And maybe sometimes that's part of the reason why people don't find God in this world or come any closer to finding him. Because we are taught to look only for the light of revelation, because that will point the way to God, and Jesus is the light and so on, so we're looking for the light. And when looking for the light, we look for the light to shine, or what we would call light in this world to shine, out of someone who is a religious teacher, a religious presenter, like a pastor and so on. And whatever they say, that seems like light to us. So we gravitate to that. We go towards that. And we don't consider other stuff, other knowledge, because anything else would be like darkness. So it would be wrong. But Isaiah 45 verse 7 says, I form the light and create darkness. So now, he is forming light and creating darkness, and then eventually says, both are alike unto me. If you feel that the light of revelation is good enough, can the blackness of darkness be good enough as well unto you? Look at Daniel chapter 2, verse 21 and 22. Actually, let's start at verse 20. Daniel answered and said, Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. So he's talking about God now. Verse 21, And he changeth the times and the seasons. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise, and knowledge to them that know understanding. And knowledge to them that know understanding. So again, we would think of wisdom and knowledge as being light. But hear what it says as he goes on in verse 22. He revealeth the deep and secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. Because, like I said before, the prophet said, Isaiah, I think, both the light and the dark are alike unto him. And so, because they are alike, he reveals deep and secret things and knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. So there is the light of knowledge that can be found in the darkness. That's why he can know knowledge in the darkness, because it says he knoweth what is in the dark. Well, if it is that dark, Jesus is the light. Jesus is the answer. The Most High is the light of knowledge, and so on. God is light. Then the knowledge would be with God in the light. What is there to be known in the darkness? But he did say the dark and the light are, both of them are alike unto him. So there is some knowledge, there's something in the dark that can be known. So I'm just saying, the way you look at a teacher, whether it's in your Hebrew camp or your Christian church, or whoever you listen to in any religion, most of this is going to be Bible-based if you're listening to this, a Bible-based kind of teacher. You have to not be so rigid in some things, because you have to understand that the teacher is going to usually present, and that's because most teachers on the earth are misled, or maybe better said, most teachers are intentional deceivers at the top, meaning the topmost teachers, the ones who for a couple hundred years made sure that the Bible is presented to you. Most of them are deceivers, and so will present things to you in a way where you will ignore darkness, and they will tell you what darkness is. You must know what darkness is for yourself. Does that sound strange? Well, it wouldn't if I said to you, you should know what light is. Because if you should know what light is and you believe in Jesus and I tell you Jesus saves, then you would say, oh, that is light. That knowledge is according to light, so you can accept that. Or God saves. Or God owns this world. He made this world, created it. That seems like the light of knowledge, so you can accept that. But obviously there is something to be known in darkness, so why can't you know it? If both of them are alike unto him, both the light and the dark, and God is telling you something different from what long-standing preachers and teachers tell you, that the knowledge of God is in the light of knowledge and the light of revelation. But God himself is telling you that he knows some stuff in darkness as well. Why don't preachers preach about darkness? And your Hebrew camp teacher, why don't they preach darkness unto you? the knowledge of darkness. They only give you one thing, that is the light, and tell you it is the light. But even ancient Africans, from whom all the religious knowledge in the world come from, as far as I understand it, they always had this duality in the way that they interpreted the world and looked at nature and things and so on. You got male, female. It says Genesis 1:26 and 27, let us make man. But when he got down to doing it, it says in verse 27, male and female created he them. Again, the duality concept there, the male and the female, just like the light and the dark. So that's the way he can know things in the light and teach you them, but he also knows stuff in the dark. But people only want to teach you about what is in the light, that they tell you is light, and no one seeks anything in the dark. Yet light seems a lot of times to be coming out of darkness. He's turning on the light in your house at night. You function in dark first to find the light switch, and light comes out of a time of darkness. You see, because both seem to interact, both the light and the dark interact the same way that the waters coming in from the ocean interact with the land. The fluidity of the water from the ocean interacts with the solidity of the stable earth. It rests on it and then it flows up onto the rest of the earth that is itself stable. Both of them, they flow together. Both of them, they work together just in their own ways. They support each other or interact with each other. So if you never look in the dark for something, that is really strange, because if you think of it, they tell you don't study that, don't go to that other church because they're not of us and they might teach you something wrong. And that's why a lot of people stay deceived on earth, because they never go outside, they never consider something else, because they are told it is darkness. But in the dark, when you go outside of where the light is, in the dark, you get to learn other things, and then one day you realize there is light in this dark, if you would think of it. Because then you start to believe other things, and then you say, oh, what I grew up believing was actually not even right. So if it was not right, it is because when you went into the dark, you found something else, and as you studied it, looked into it some more, and you took it on in your life, after a while, you become someone who lives according to that supposed darkness, and now you like it and you call that darkness light. It seems you're getting a taste of what the Creator is saying here, that both the light and the dark are alike unto him. So it's alike in some ways unto you as well, because now you believe new things that people tell you is darkness, and you once called darkness, but now you say it is light, and you're trying to teach people those new things. So maybe some of our teaching should include a bit of darkness, so that people can have a balanced view of God, a balanced view of the world we live in, a balanced view of creation. It's like telling people all they need to read is the Bible, but there's a lot of other books that if you read, you would then understand the Bible some more. So back to Daniel 2 verse 22, he revealeth the deep and secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. So if it's deep and secret things, it seems to me that there's more in the darkness. So it goes on to say, it puts a colon right there and tells you, he's trying to explain this some more. He knoweth what is in that darkness. What is in them? The secret, the deep and secret things are the things he knows in the darkness. And the light of knowledge dwells within him in the dark. Both the light and the dark go together. When I was a younger child in school, we called it primary school in Jamaica. Anyway, we learned this stuff, and I did the experiment. One day I don't know if I'll bother to do it one day, but anyway, they say light has different wavelengths in it, and if you can actually, it's too much to explain now, but if you look it up, there's a little bit of darkness in light as well. And we did this experiment, and I ended up making it for my friends, and it was cool, where we had this box, like a just like a box, and cut out some holes in it and so on. By the time we shone the light through it with a flashlight in a certain kind of way, it broke apart the light, separated from the dark, and it was just amazing to see darkness, but along with the light, separated from the light. But before we set up the apparatus, now the whole structure with the box and whatever else we had put in it, when we shone the flashlight, it was only light that we could see. But once we did the whole setup, we saw the darkness separating, which means darkness is a part of light. It is included in it, right? And that whole duality concept, again, I said. Just like the whole saying, as above, so beneath. You see that? Because what is above is entwined and intricately designed to be part of what is beneath, and vice versa. Now look at Isaiah 50, and it's Psalm 91 I'm talking about in verse 1, right? Because I have to go through all of this to show you, with the times that we face now, with this darkness coming upon the world, massive lockdowns that keep going on, they come every now and then, and one day they're going to come back forcefully and so on. All kinds of storms and natural disasters, chaos, and the threat of war and nuclear war, and Babylon being destroyed, all kinds of stuff, and they're telling you about famine that's coming, water shortages and so on, and just the evil of the serpent from Eden that's still alive and so on. You're wondering how you're going to make it. But you see, I have to go through all this to show you something powerful in Psalm 91, if you will reflect on it for yourself long enough and repeatedly. That in the secret place of darkness, you will abide in shadow, in the blackness of the darkness of people's regular understanding and your regular understanding. You are going to be covered and protected by a knowledge and an approach that is not like what you have been used to. You will be covered and protected by something that does not flow, by something that opens up before you as you take each step and trust in the Most High, that will be like darkness. When things are normal and fine, that would be like darkness. You would never set that up. You would never think of that. You see, the children of Israel are going to come out of the problems in the world, because when they trust in the Most High, something is going to open up that they did not see on a regular day, that was lit with the regular day-to-day knowledge that they've been dealing with. But it's going to be the knowledge that is associated with the shadow or the darkness or the blackness of what they could not see. And that's why it was blackness. They couldn't see the way before. Just like when Moses was taking out the people, supposedly in prophecy now, out of Egypt, they could not see the way through. But the blackness of and the bleakness of their situation, now we have really reached the end now. Pharaoh's army is going to catch up to us. That was the blackness or the shadow, the darkness of how the situation looks. We cannot go any further. We are trapped. But in the darkness of that situation, the light opened up and a way was made out of that darkness when he stretched forth the rod, and the sea opened up and a way opened up, and the children of Israel were delivered. What's facing us as the world gets crazy is a darkness that is coming upon the world. But I'll read it some other time. But the scripture says that you will be delivered from the troubles that would come upon the world. That means the trouble is not for you. But sometimes people misunderstand that to say that you're not going to feel anything. Well, we're already feeling stuff. But you just have to keep your mind on the big picture. And get into the darkness that brings a new kind of revelation for the new problems that you are facing, that you never faced in your life, that I never faced in my life, and so on. There must be another kind of revelation. It is a revelation that's not just associated with light that you have been told, but it is a revelation that will come out of the darkness. That's why the Bible has this strange word all throughout the Torah. Fear the Lord, fear the Lord. Those that fear the Lord will be delivered. Those that fear the Lord will be saved. Isn't it funny that it uses fear to speak of reverence and trust and so on, and respect? You respect the Lord and his ways and his commandments and so on. But it is the same word fear that's even spelled the same way, that's associated with being in the dark. I fear something in the dark. These horror movies that you watch and so on, and somebody's in fear. It's like a play on the meaning of the word, to say that the same word that you use to worship God because you fear him, you fear his name and his word and so on, is the same word that also means when you are in the place of darkness, you will have fear. But it is actually a different kind of revelation that is flipped now, because when you think that you should be afraid in the darkness, that is where the revelation comes. It's a different kind of revelation that is meant to operate in the dark times, in the darkness of your life, in the darkness of 2021, in the darkness of lockdowns, in the darkness and uncertainty of how you will survive all this trouble that's coming upon the earth. Get in the dark. Psalm 91 verse 1, he that dwelleth in the secret place, or in the darkness, in the secret place of the Most High, shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Under the shadow, under the shade, under the blackness, under the darkness of the protection of the Almighty. It's listed there in the understanding as being a place of a shadow, or of the darkness of the protection of the Almighty, because most people will not run into it. Most people on the earth, because to them it's dark, they can't see that is protection, to trust in the Most High. That's why it is treated as a shade of the Almighty, or the darkness of the Almighty, because most people don't see it, and most people don't want to trust in it because it is too dark. I can't see my way. That's why it is a different kind of revelation, because such protection is not revealed unto those who trust with regular light. When they tell you, this is the way, trust in the government, this is the way, trust in the pastor, this is the way, trust in the light of Jesus, this is the way, trust in the knowledge of God, and so on. It's a different kind of knowledge that challenges you if you have only known the light. It is a knowledge that is reserved in darkness, that makes even the most faithful in the light have to decide, is God in the dark if I go in it? Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Because even the psalmist David, knew that even if it is in the darkness of the valley of shadow of death, the darkness where death would reside, I will still not fear. I don't have to get into the light on the mountaintop to fear no evil. But in the darkness of the valley of shadows, I can still not fear death, is what David is saying. Because the revelation is still in the darkness of the valley, where the sun isn't always hitting it. David said, I can walk in the dark even though death might be facing me, and still make it. Now Isaiah 50 and verse 10, who is among you that feareth the Lord, that obeyeth the voice of his servant, that walketh in darkness? Isn't this funny? It's just what I've been saying to you. You listen to the pastor, he tells you the light of God, the light of Jesus, and so on. But this here now, the Most High through the prophet is talking about the light that is embedded in darkness, that is hidden in darkness. Who is among you that feareth the Lord, that obeyeth the voice of his servant? The servant, you're obeying the voice already, so you are an obedient person. Yet, while you are obeying the voice of the servant who should be telling you about the light of God's word, that is your protection, you still are walking in darkness, because it says, this person that obeyeth the voice of the servant of the Lord is that same person that walketh in darkness and hath no light. How can you have no light if you are obeying the voice of his servant? And his servant is teaching the word, is teaching the Torah, and they say Torah is light. But you walk in darkness and still have no light? He's saying, let him trust in the name of the Lord and stay upon his God. Why? Because if you follow Torah properly, better and learn to do it more and more the same way I'm learning, you will go in and out of the dark and the light. The same duality concept from ancient Africans. I'm telling you, Africans must have wrote these original words, no matter that is presented to us in the form of what we today call the Bible. Because even Torah is something African when you break down the word, as far as I have learned. So the same duality concept is there now. He's saying, if you are troubled, even though you obey the voice of a servant that's telling you the light of truth and so on from the Torah, yet you still walk in darkness and have no light, he's saying, let him trust in the name of the Lord and stay upon his God. Why? He's telling you that you have to find another revelation in your walk. It is going to be a revelation that is there in the dark, because wherever you are supposed to find that revelation and stop living in fear. You are supposed to find a new revelation for your situation, no matter where you are. That's why when David was out in the light and in the congregation with the brethren and so on, he could be praising and singing and dancing and so on, right? Like one time he says he danced till his clothes fell off and so on. But when he had that revelation right there to make him praise the Lord and dance crazy like that. But when he was in the darkness of the valley, he still found a revelation that was fitting in the darkness of the valley of the shadow of death, because he knew, I'm not in the dark, I must get another revelation in the dark. We need a revelation in this dark time, and it can be found. Do not be overcome. Trust in the Most High. You settle your heart. You say, I am in the dark, and there is still a way out. And you settle yourself and you meditate on the word until the way embraces you. It is the way, what? Of truth. Truth in the heart. Because if you read Psalm 91, and I'm going to have to do another lesson on this Psalm 91, but if you read later on, it's telling you that the truth is the actual protection in the darkness. The protection comes out of truth. Truth is what makes you know that you are under the shadow of the Almighty. And he calls it darkness. Why? Because most people, even people who teach the Bible, they are not in truth. They are lying to you deliberately, intentionally, taking your offerings and your donation and taking you being a follower, but lying to you. So it's not everyone that's actually under the shadow of the Almighty, because they do not have truth in their heart. That's why when they build up their big following and get their lots of offering, then they buy the nice fancy jets and planes and the big house and so on. And you broke, you can't pay your light bill, but you still give them more money on the weekend to pay the light bill for the church or the camp. Because you don't have enough sense. You don't have it. Why don't they, since they've now made lots, now pay your bill when you struggle? Instead, they say with the masses of money that they've got buying jets and 5 houses and so on, now one day when things get really super bad, then they'll feed you some soup and some meal because it's tough times. And they only do that for a short time. But you, with your little, you have given in the offering plate every single time for years. But with the masses that they have now amassed, they only give it to you if times get really tough, and then it stops quickly and you still struggle after that. Something does not seem right. These people are not in truth, because truth will... Look, Isaiah 58, if you read Isaiah 58, the fasting chapter we used to call it in church, Isaiah 58 tells you, it's telling me at least, that the fasting is not simply the abstaining from food. What is the fasting? You're not turning down your plate to fast. You're not turning on your plate just because you are staying away from food in order to fast. You are turning down your plate not to do something to your body, which is abstain from food. You are turning down your plate because you're not going to eat it, because you're going to go and give the food to somebody else, the food in your pantry, the food in your kitchen. That's why you don't eat. And so it's called a fast. It's not because you are trying to stay away from food while you are fasting by not eating. The reason why you are fasting is because you are turning on your plate and taking your food to give it to somebody else. So the religiosity of fasting is incorrect. Let's fast at the end of the month. Let's fast next month. Let's fast whatever. Fasting is not trying to stay away from food. Fasting is about giving your food to somebody else. Then shall thy light rise up. Read Isaiah 58 again. The reason to turn on the plate is not to have a religious fasting of abstaining from food for better spiritual advancement and to draw close to God. The reason for turning down the plate has nothing to do with that, with starving your body to get close to God. The reason for fasting is to deny yourself the food so that the food is available in your kitchen to pack it up in a bag and go outside and give it to somebody else. That is the reason why you turn down the plate. It is because you're not going to put stuff in that plate anymore. That is your plate. You're going to put it in somebody else's plate. That is fasting. Then the Lord said, your light will rise upon you. Then he will bless you. Not because you drew closer to him because you starved your body and you become more spiritually acute or spiritually aware because your body isn't clogged up with food because you turn on the plate. No. It is about giving the food away. That is fasting. Fasting, we have been taught, is not eating, period. No, fasting is letting someone else eat what you would have had to eat. But let's get back to this now. So you have no light, let him trust in the name of the Lord. Okay, let's go on to another verse. Well, okay, here's Isaiah 58 verse 10, which I was just talking about. And if thou draw out thy soul to the hungry, you see, it's about the hungry. The focus is not on you getting closer to God. That's not why you're fasting. The focus is on drawing out your soul toward hungry people and satisfy the afflicted soul. Then shall thy light rise. Then shall thy light rise in obscurity, and thy darkness be as a noonday. You see the duality again? The darkness becomes just like the brightness of the noonday. So when God says the dark and the light are alike unto him, it should be alike unto you as well if you would only live a better, pure life in truth. That's why I said my name, when they told me you got to choose Hebrew name, I came up with Yalak Emet. Because it's about the Yalak to walk and the Emet truth. It's about walking in truth. Not that I'd already found the truth, but I said, when I will search for the truth, and when I find it, I will walk in it. So it's a daily walk because I'm learning daily. And as I learn some more, now I understand that if I draw my soul to the hungry, I go, instead of fasting to desire God and being on your knees all day like the Christians did and so on, you would more, when you're fasting, desire to see somebody eat the food that you would have had for yourself and push in your own mouth. That's why if you desire that the next person who's hungry and can't afford it eat, then you will turn on your plate to give it to them. That's how fasting is. This is what fasting actually is. In the spiritual sense here in the book, right? And satisfy. So fasting is about satisfying the afflicted soul. That's when the light will rise in obscurity. Light will rise where you cannot see your way in this time of Psalm 91 verse 1 protection. In this time of Psalm 91 lockdowns and Isaiah 10 lockdowns and so on. In the darkness of time, you will find light in obscurity when you can't see your way in the darkness of this pandemic and so on. You will find light in obscurity, you will begin to see, and the darkness will be just like noonday unto you. The darkness surrounding your job and the threat of not, you're furloughed from your job and whatever things or whatever, it will become the darkness of all of that. How you're going to eat, how whatever, is going to become, that darkness is going to become just like noonday. Because you are fasting, you are giving somebody else something to eat when you are worried that you're not close to God. So you need to fast. And you are worried that your bills aren't paid and so on. We have done things backward. And it's not like I have all the answers as well. That's why I keep searching. But you teach your little truth. I teach my little truth. She teach her little truth. And together we will find the way. Together Isaiah 9 verse 2, the people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. Them that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, just like David said, or walk through the valley of the shadow of death. So it is in a time of darkness when you're walking through darkness, even in this time, because if you trust in the Most High, don't work in this time. How it's going to work later on when more pressure comes? The people that walk, you see, the reason why it's not working is because truth is not in us. That's why the biggest thing to seek for is truth. That's why I teach the biggest thing to search for is truth. But they teach you to seek for God, and we know God, so we will teach you every Sunday, or we will teach you every Sabbath, and we will teach you during the week. And they're teaching you about God, but you are seeking for them because they are teachers. You should be seeking for truth. Seek for truth. Your focus must be on truth and not on a bad teacher. This teacher knows a lot. You are looking for the wrong thing. Look for truth. Don't look for man. Don't look for teacher. Look for truth. That's when you will find the Most High. That's when you will be under the shadow of the Almighty. But the people that walk in darkness have seen a great light. So in darkness, you should be able to see light. I got to move on from that. Isaiah 29:18, and in that day shall the deaf hear the words of the book. Now this is much later on. And the eyes of the blind shall see out of obscurity and out of darkness. So again, in a time when you can't see properly, things are obscure and it's darkness, sight will come. You will begin to see. You see now, the people that are the people of the Most High on the earth should be able to see and just see. They should just be able to see. Doesn't mean every time you can do something about it, but you should still have sight. David couldn't do anything about the situation. That's why he said, yea, though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, or in the valley of the shadow of blackness or darkness. He couldn't do anything about it. He couldn't change his situation. He couldn't get out of it. That's why he said, I got to walk through it. But while I'm walking, I can see my deliverance. I can see my protection. And his protection covered him and kept him walking through until he got out of it. So if the time is dark, things are obscure, you should still see, even if you can't do anything to get out of the situation now, you should still be able to see your way through, step by step, day by day. Isaiah 42 verse 16, and I will bring the blind by a way that they knew not. I will lead them in paths that they have not known. And I will make darkness light before them. How? It's by seeing the other side of light. Revelations will still come. You will still be able to move because he will bring the blind. He doesn't say he's going to make them be able to see first. He will bring them. That means movement is going to happen while you are still blind. And then now as he goes on, then I will make crooked paths straight and so on. But notice you were moving and being led and you were being brought before the crooked path became straight. We got it backwards. Not that the other teaching is not good for certain times in life, but when it becomes dark, the teaching and the temperature of what people teach and the condition of the teaching, how it conditions the mind, should change and adapt with the time and with what's going on in the world. The same stuff your teacher's been teaching for 500 years, for 300 years, you must change it. It must be able to adapt and fit the circumstances in your life and in the world. Just like things are changing on us now, the teaching must change to adapt with its environment. Anybody teaching you to think the same way, they are not with it yet. And that's not a put down. That's just saying light is coming in. It's a different kind of light. You got to size things up and look different. You can have an object in your dark room. You got a power cut. You can pick up an object in your room and you can feel it and know it and tell. You're looking for something and there's a power cut. Let's say you're looking for a lighter to light your candle. You're reaching in the drawer and you're like, where is it? I know it's here. You know, it's put it in this drawer right here. You're feeling through. You pick up this stuff. You grab this stuff in the drawer. No, it's not that. No, it's not that. Why? The light of knowledge is telling you it is not that. that which you have touched. It is not this one either, it's not that. But when you feel the right one now, which is a lighter, the light of knowledge says to you, you have just found the lighter. You see, it's a knowledge that is in darkness, the darkness of the room. So whatever the mind is, and nobody knows really what the mind is, but whatever the mind is, it is able to see the light of knowledge and the light of truth. It is a true thing that this is the lighter, now pick it up. But normally when there is light and the world is lit up, you can use the light of the eyes to look at the lighter, and then the light of the knowledge from the light in the room will tell you that is the lighter you are seeing and looking at. Pick it up. Well, the mind operates with a different kind of light. It is dark in the room, physically dark, but the light in the mind, it says the light in the mind, or the eyes of the mind, can see in the darkness, because both the dark and the light are alike unto him. And if he's in you, then he has put himself in your mind, because he breathed into man the breath of life, and man became a living soul. So what he breathed into you, he breathed in himself into you. So if both the light and the dark are alike unto him, then when he breathed himself into you, you should know that both the light and the dark are alike unto you. When you face certain situations, you'll be able to see. So in the darkness of the room, whatever the mind is, it has its own light, and it can see the lighter. The light of it runs all the way through your hands and all the way through your mind and so on. And when you grab it, the light comes on. That's the lighter. Pick it up. You're seeing in the dark with the way the mind works in the dark. How does your mind work in the darkness of this pandemic that we're going through? You see, you are more distressed and troubled because you are still relying on the teachings that you have been given from the Bible teachers for all the years gone by. And now when you need the light to see in this time, you are sad, you are depressed, because you realize that they have not been teaching me something that is able to get me to have hope in this time. And if you don't see them show up on YouTube next week, you are sad, you are depressed. Because something was missing from your learning. Because you never took, like I said at the start when I started out, you never went to the next church or the next camp or the next teacher or the next whatever, and you never went to your next self, the self that lives in the dark. So now when you need the self in the dark, the self that is you in the dark, you can't rely on it, so now you are depressed. How am I going to pay my bills? You see, your real self lives in the dark. That's why when you look in the mirror, you just see the outer self, the physical you. But the inner you that is in the dark is just there. That's why when you go to sleep and a darkness kind of takes you over, you come out in your dreams, because the real you, it lives in the dark. Like, are you hearing teaching right here? I'm trying to help you as much as I'm trying to help myself, because we are one. And even in your head, they say you got this pineal gland, and I call it a mini sun. It's like a little light bulb. It will glow. So you see, you figure inside of you is dark, but there's a light inside of you, and you got other light inside of you. They say your bones glow, and you got another light someplace else inside of you, and so on, probably 2 other places maybe. But you see, even in the darkness of the inner structure of the body, where your body is fully closed, you figure everything is dark in there, there's still light on the inside. It's telling you that there is another light. This world is mysterious. Your God is mysterious. You can't limit him to your teacher. You can't limit him to the teachings you've got. You can't limit him even to what I'm telling you here, even if you find this interesting. You cannot limit your God and limit yourself to what you hear in this. You must grow, and even come back and teach me. And teach the world around you. And teach your children. Because Israel, when the Bible in Isaiah says the whole world will be filled with darkness because dark times will come, but Israel will be the light that shines. How are you going to shine the light if you can't shine any light for yourself to make it? Then the world is doomed, because you are going to shine the light of the Creator on the earth. Notice that even the power of God, the revelation of God, and even it's managed by the righteous. Even righteousness is managed by the righteous people. Because we always say it's God that's, righteousness comes from God, and God never wanted a king for Israel originally. He just wanted to be ruling over them and directing them and so on. But righteousness, if you think of it now, and this should have been on my Loxton Knows Torah commentary, this part of it with the righteousness, because this is like a real commentary style kind of discussion here. I'll make it brief because I want to save it for some other time. But righteousness, we always thought in a Bible or Torah kind of way, is managed by Jesus Christ or is managed by God in the Old Testament. But righteousness is managed by the righteous. That's why Isaiah said, speaking of the servant, which they call the Messiah, which as far as I'm concerned is Africa, it says, my righteous servant, they will bring a light upon the world, and he will not stop, he will not fail until he establishes judgment on the earth and righteousness on the earth. Why? Because it is the righteous people who will go and destroy the weapons of the wicked on the earth, right? And destroy all the weapons, 7 years, clean up and whatever they said, and righteousness will come on the earth, and the Lord will make righteousness and praise to flourish on the earth once again. And what's the other scripture that was just in my mind here? It says, and the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the Lord. Why? Because the righteous people will destroy the unrighteous in their wickedness, and the Most High will help them and so on. But it is the righteous who will cause the righteousness to flow throughout the earth, because they are connected to their God, and they will move the righteousness throughout the earth, because it is through them that the righteousness moves and spreads throughout all the earth. That's why the Most High put everything in Adam. It says that he blew breath into Adam. He blew himself into the man, and so he actually entered into the man. So where you go, where I go, where the righteous go, righteousness flows, righteousness flourishes. It's the righteous who manages righteousness on the earth. That's why the earth is so unrighteous, is because the wicked rule. So darkness fills the earth. But now if we get back to Psalm 91, so after discussing all of that now, let's read Psalm 91 verse 1 once again. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. He that dwelleth in the dark place, it's secret because it's hidden. Not everybody approaches it like this, so it is secret or hidden or dark. The person who dwells like that in the other realm of knowledge, in the other side of knowledge, they will abide. They will have staying power and protection under the shadow of the Almighty. They will not be swept away. You see that now? When you rest in the truth, a true, pure conscience with the Most High, not one who knows that they're teaching lies from the Bible to people and they still teach it. Those people they don't know God. And not one who sit and keep listening to them and following them year after year and learning from them and don't want to learn anything else. Those people, they don't know God either, because they are not interested in truth. Pure stuff to come to the people, as pure as I can find it out for myself anyway, while I work to find out more. Because it is truth that will let the person stay. Because the person understands there's truth in this dark secret place of the other side of knowledge of the Most High and the other side of knowledge of the world, of the Word of God, and the other side of knowledge of the truth of real good health for people to live on the earth. When you get on that other side of knowledge, then you drink better water, you eat better food, and so on. Because the regular knowledge of eating this and eating that, that's the regular light of knowledge when they tell you each country has a recommendation. This is your dietary guide for this country and so on. But the other side of knowledge now, it says, no, you eat this instead. This is better for you. This is how the body was made to thrive, to eat this kind of food. You see, it's a darker knowledge because not everybody accepts it. Not everybody looks it over. Not everybody looks into it. By the time you learn to eat better food, you are so old you've damaged your body so much. Because the knowledge of real good eating was dark. But when you get into the dark side, or dwell in that dark side, or dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High, that person shall abide in better health. As you slowly heal your body again, that person will abide under the shadow of the Almighty. That person will abide in the pandemic. That person will abide. Because it's truth that they're after. Let's go on and read 2 to 6 so I can wrap it up now. Close it out. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in him will I trust. Why? Because you are in the darkness and you understand you are finding truth there. So you don't want to leave and go back out to the light that most people know about, that light that most people know. You'd rather stay here. Now you find that in the darkness of the knowledge that you have that's so different from the light of knowledge that you've had for the years, you can still say your testimony, he is my refuge and my fortress. Verse 3, surely he shall deliver thee. Now you are in the darkness of the other side of knowledge, but you can still keep the testimony and say, like the people who are in light, he shall deliver thee from the snare. But notice that the people in light, they start to get worried after a while, because the other knowledge for certain times in life is in the dark side. Because sometimes you turn on the light in your house, other times you turn it off. When the light is needed, you flip it on. So you must be able to adjust in life. What kind of revelation do you need for this time in your life? You must be able to shift and shift and shift to move with the times. That's why the ancients, they talked about, and you're going to curse me of it, but the ancients, they talked about the serpent, the kundalini, the fire of God. That's the fire that's in the Bible. You see? Listen, like a serpent, but the trick is that the evil serpent now, someone took it over and made it evil, so you do not know that you should take a look at it. When the fire in the book and the Bible and the same fire on Mount Sinai is talking about the fire, the kundalini, that people call by different names in different countries, in different religions. Because the serpent corrupted the knowledge, so you will not trust in it. But they give it to you in a religiously biblical way to say that that fire is some fire coming down on the day of Pentecost or some fire at Sinai, and you don't understand. So you never go past a certain level in your walk and your search for truth. So you never find the truth of all of this. You never get closer to it. Surely he shall deliver me. Verse 4, he shall cover thee with his feathers. See, in the secret place you're being covered. That's why it's secret now, because you're covered. So why doesn't he give you the bright light? Instead, you come to him for light and he covers you up so that there is darkness surrounding you. Why? Because he knows that the truth that you need is going to be found in darkness, because the regular outside light is not all you need, because light has both darkness and light in it. So he's giving you the other part of light, not the darkness. So he covers you up and blocks up the light that you are used to. He shall cover thee with his feathers to block out the light, and under his wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. So Psalm 91 verse 1, you are protected and kept in the secret place where you can abide under the shadow by the verse 4 truth that is going to be your shield and buckler to protect you in verse 1. It's truth that you seek that actually protects you and covers you and keeps you safe. It is truth that you seek that makes the Creator say, I will protect this people, I'll protect that family, I'll protect this one, I'll protect that one. It's truth that they sought. When Israel walked away from the truth, which they put it in a commandment kind of way, they were destroyed. It's truth that they left off of, the teachings of the Most High. But it's not limited to no 10 commandments or 613 commandments. That's just a trick of this whole thing. You got to learn Torah in a different kind of way. Go to the dark side of it and learn something that they're not teaching you in your regular congregation. Verse 5, thou shalt not be afraid. See, because you have the truth now, then you will not be afraid. So he doesn't ask you anything. He's telling you, thou shalt not be afraid. Why? Because you made the verse 4 truth that gives you the verse 1 protection. You made all that to happen in your life. So now thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night. Why? Because you have already associated yourself with the darkness of night by being under the darkness of the covering where you are covered up from regular light. So now you already know the dark and you know that God is there. So now thou shalt not be afraid, because it's not possible to be afraid of things in the dark when you are now associated with the dark, because both the dark and the light are alike unto him. And since he is in you, now what's there to fear? That's why elsewhere, speaking of the end time stuff now, the Most High says in some place in Isaiah, one of the later chapters, who art thou that thou shouldest be afraid of a man that shall die, and why are you afraid of the Assyrian, and so on. He's saying he's going to come against you, he's going to hit you and so on, but he says don't be afraid of him. So thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day. The same duality concept, ancient African stuff I told you earlier on. He puts the duality here again. Not be afraid for the terror by night, nor the arrow that flies by daytime. So he's saying, as you go between light and dark, for the different periods in your life, thou shalt not be afraid. But when you stick only to the light of what they teach you in Sunday school from you were a child, what they teach you of the light in church, the light of Jesus, or what they teach you of the light of Torah in Hebrew camp and so on, it is not the only light. There's a darkness that has its own kind of light. And he says, if you go and you vacillate between these two, the darkness of the terror by night and the arrow by daytime, brightness of daytime, then thou shalt not be afraid, because you're not leaving out anything, you're going to both sides. Nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. Man, I thought this was going to be like a 5-10 minute lesson. I was trying to make this shorter, but I added so many scriptures as I went along. I still want to touch here, though, 2 more scriptures from Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel 7, and then I got to close it out. Daniel 2 and verse 21 and 22. And he changeth the times, because I was starting to read this earlier, let me get back to it. He was talking about God, and so he's saying God changes times and removeth kings, setteth up kings, and so on. And he giveth wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. He revealeth the deep and secret things. You see there? He's revealing dark things, because most people just know the light revelation the upfront light of revelation that you get in church and in camp and in your religious setting that people call light. Those are light, yes, but they're just regular basic upfront stuff. But then there's a light that is in the deeper things, in the darkness of deeper things that is dark because most people don't go towards it and deal with it. So it's not popularized on the earth. So it is like a darkness. It's dark information, but it is the information of God. So he revealeth, and the secret things he knoweth, what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. Both of them are dwelling with him. The revelation from both sides, from the dark and the light. Let's run over now, final verse now, from Daniel chapter 7, verse 1 and 2. And listen to this as I close this out now. Because if you go through this, you will see that you can approach the future with the protection of the Most High by searching for truth. Truth, period. When people were first created on earth, nobody read a Bible or a Torah. They did not read books because books did not yet exist. How did they find truth? It is from the inside. Heaven declared the glory, and you interpret and see and understand all of that truth on the inside. When you look up on the clouds, the sky, and so on, the heavens declare, all of that stuff comes on the inside to you. It's on the inside where you know truth and where you find the declaration and interpret the declaration of the glory of God. It's on the inside that all of that happens. So Daniel 7, 1 and 2, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Notice where it happened now, this dream. He had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. So it is in darkness that this dream comes to him, pulled away from everything else, whether he's sleeping or not, whatever the real deal is. It is in his quiet time, in the darkness of his head, because it's telling you that he's dreaming now and seeing visions. He's dreaming. And a lot of times when you see these dreams and visions in the people in the Torah, in the Old Testament, they were in some kind of a darkness. They were secluded, or they were sleeping or something like that. Or it's just a vision that they see. Even in the daytime, it's a vision where it blocks them out from the light of regular activities around them. So now it presents a darkness now, because the darkness is like a veil that blocks off everything is that they're seeing around them, even if it's a vision in the daytime. And the only thing they can see now is the light that's coming out of the darkness, because it is dark to everybody else around them, because no one else can see the light of the vision that they're getting in daytime, because the light that they're seeing in that vision is dark to everybody else. No one else can see it. They are in the darkness of a different kind of revelation, a different kind of interaction with God, where they are not seeing people doing stuff, pulling the donkey around them, the ass and so on. They are blocked off from that. They are in a vision, in the dark side of light, when the Most High pulls them away for a daytime vision. So whether day or night. So basically it says he's seeing this dream and visions of his head. So now you see in his head. Now, when these people say they see in heaven, the vision in heaven and so on, heaven is in their vision and they explain it. It is in the head that it happens because he blew into man the breath of life. So God enters into the man. Now the man can see all kinds of stuff. The prophet can see everything that he sees in his head. So people, it just tells you in the Bible that they went to heaven, and so you believe them because you believe the teachers doing the regular light teaching, the bright light teaching over the years that you've been used to. But the darker side of the light of teaching, a different kind of way, tells you that people do not actually go to heaven. Heaven happens inside of them. Heaven comes to them, and it happens in his head, the dream and the visions of his head. So heaven is created inside the head or inside the mind, whatever the mind is. It creates everything like a movie production that's going on, and the movie is created inside the head of the man. So when he sees the vision of heaven or whatever and all these different things in the Bible that different people see, they are not going to heaven. Heaven is happening inside the vision. Heaven is happening in the head. It is happening in the mind. Every time they see heaven in a vision in the Old Testament or in the Bible, they are creating heaven in the mind. Heaven is created inside the mind. When you dream of going to a building downtown, a store downtown, and you get up and say, oh, I dreamt I went into this store last night when I was dreaming. The store was created inside the head, inside your mind. The store was created in your mind. So people do not go to heaven. Heaven comes to them. Heaven is created inside of their mind. So in the darkness of the mind, dark because nobody else can see it. So when he's dreaming it, nobody else can see it. It's dark to everybody else. It's a dark side that they're going to get this knowledge. So verse 2, he saw all this stuff in the darkness of this dream vision of his bed. And verse 2, Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night. I saw in my vision in a dark time, in the darkness of night. So now he saw the stuff in the dark because he can see knowledge in dark, see and get revelation in dark for the time that the king is faced with and that he's faced with and so on. He sees all that stuff in the darkness of the night and in the darkness of a vision that no one else can see but him, because it would have been dark to everybody else. So because it was dark and only he can see it, now he reveals the vision and he lets it out. He speaks it. It says, Daniel spake and said. So now what was in the dark side of knowledge that the king would not know, now Daniel reveals it and brings it out into the light side of knowledge. So now Daniel becomes a teacher and teaches the king. The regular Sunday school lesson that you have learned all along, the regular Bible study and the regular Bible teaching that you have learned all along, that is the daytime, the regular daytime light. Jesus is light, God is love, God is whatever. That's the daytime. But when you go to the other side of revelation, it is in dark. Nobody else is there with you. You are doing it on your own. It is happening to you. You must get another understanding of the Torah. And it is a search, a journey for truth that will take you there, that will let you get there. When you find that truth, you will get the truth of Psalm 91 verse 4 and 5. That's when you will get the Psalm 91 verse 1 understanding of protection. It is truth in people's heart that brings them the protection. Because David loved the Lord and was being sincere and being truthful. He could walk through the valley of the shadow. People like to repeat and play Psalm 91, Psalm 91 video, and Psalm 91 from YouTube because they're worried about the condition of the world now. When are you going to play Psalm 91 in your soul? By seeking for truth, and let truth be in the inner parts, like the Bible says. Then your protection comes upon you. I'll cut it here. Thanks for listening. It went way too long, longer than I wanted it to. But thanks again. Twitter, YouTube, Patreon, Yalak Emmett channel. Glad you listened. Take a look again, Psalm 91, and take a look at the fasting stuff from Isaiah 58. See you in the next video. Bye.